Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. John and I came across something earlier. Was it last week? It was last week.
Yeah,
I was
last
gonna,
week.
because it's only Tuesday. I was thinking it was earlier in the week. But anyway, John and I came across something recently that was something that went out to anybody that is subscribed to the CAI notifications. And it was SB 518.
518.
And it's basically CAI is saying, don't, tell DeSantis that he needs to veto this and everything. And so, of course, it came from CAI. I posted it in Cam Matrix thinking, we need to veto it. So I need to hear from you. John texts me after that. He says, I helped write this bill. And I said, oh, okay, I didn't know that. He said, well, I think it would be wrong for them to veto it. And I said, well, I need you to explain that to us because myself and all the cams out there are not going to understand until you break it down for us. So please explain, number one, where did the bill come from? Why was it written? And how is it going to benefit community associations?
Absolutely, Carrie. Thank you so much. So the Senate Bill 518 that is now, it passed both chambers almost unanimously. And so it's going to Governor DeSantis for final approval. That bill basically is an update on the tree law, which is statute 163.045. A lot of people just call it, the tree law that was
Right.
enacted in 2019. Now, there were some pretty significant problems with that law. Okay, first of all, and probably the most important one, is it did not define danger. So the original intent of the law was basically it put two groups of people, licensed landscape architects and ISA certified arborists.
Okay.
It gave them the authority to deem a tree a danger.
Deem it. Okay.
Correct. They classify it as a dangerous tree. Well, the problem with that is dangerous could mean a million different things. Is the tree going to fall over on somebody's house? Or is somebody going to have their allergies triggered by the pine pollen?
Okay.
And I've literally seen that excuse for removing a tree. Well, it produces pine pollen, so we need to remove the tree. Which, if that was the case, you'd have to remove every pine tree within 5 miles of that person's home.
Right.
And it's just not realistic. Um, just because a tree is dropping acorns, it doesn't mean that tree is dangerous.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
So wait. So the bill that's in there right now is basically saying that anybody can deem a tree dangerous. Anyone can.
A certified arborist or a licensed landscape architect could deem the tree hazard or dangerous.
Okay.
Okay. The revisions, which is what the Florida chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture and some other agencies worked and crafted, is not to repeal the whole law, but actually make some changes that really kind of clarify things. Okay. What it does is this update actually better defines how tree risk is defined. So the new Senate Bill 518 that's going in front of the governor is going to define it as being a tree that has been deemed a moderate or greater. So there's 4 ratings: low, moderate, high, and extreme. So if a tree is deemed moderate or greater, then the tree could be removed. And there's specific methodology that needs to be followed. There's two specific standards in our industry. One is the ISA Best Management Practices for Tree Risk Assessment.
What does ISA stand for?
That's the International Society of Arboriculture.
Okay.
And then we also have the American National Standards Institute A300 Part 9 standard.
Okay.
And both of those work hand in hand to help arborists define the scope of the risk that a tree presents. As you can see right here,
Yeah, I see them behind you.
I'm actually an ISA tree risk assessment qualified master arborist. And that's a specific designation. There's only about 400 tree risk assessment qualified certified arborists in the state right now. And any certified arborist could write that report, but and that's kind of the way the law has been written. But the problem has been, Carrie, is that the way that's been applied is literally a certified arborist can come out and he wants to remove that tree because he needs some work. So on a napkin, he writes a little note: the tree is dangerous and should be removed pursuant to this law.
Mm-mm.
And ethically, I have a problem with that. And many other certified arborists have issues with that. And there's actually been ethics complaints go to the International Society of Arboriculture related to people just kind of basically gaming the system. And so the update itself really is a way to help define the methodology that tree risk is defined. It does make some other minor changes. Right now, the law says that they have to obtain that piece of paper from the certified arborist. One of the new changes is they have to actually possess it, because you can't really determine if a tree is dangerous or has a risk after it's been removed.
So why is CAI so concerned about this law then, if it's not something that the community association members can control?
Well, and that I'm not really very clear on, because they don't really, in the notification they sent out, they didn't really clearly define it.
Right.
Other than the fact that the update, one of the big challenges was that the original law in 2019 did not define residential property. And so you had people that are basically misapplying that. And I think that's where this really kind of comes in, is that CAI wants the term residential to broadly define community associations as well, homeowners associations. And there's some pretty significant problems with that. So the update, it actually says there's going to be a single family detached dwelling. Okay, so it's your private home, and that's
right.
what that applies to. Now, here's the big ticket on this. That's just applying to the single family home.
Just the HOAs.
It could be within an HOA. Okay. They have to, they would still have to be in possession of that piece of paper from a certified arborist. And they would have to be able to present that if an inspector came out from the municipality. Okay. With the changes in the law. Now, where CAI comes in is they want to basically make it where it's all the common elements. That's my take on what I read in that article.
So it's a different piece of it that they're concerned about, really, that is bothering them.
Exactly. They're basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, and Okay, so look, I get the idea that like if I wanted to cut down a tree in my front yard right now, could I do it?
You could get a certified arborist to come out right now.
No, I'm saying if I wanted to cut it down the tree in my front yard right now, I'm not in a homeowners association. I'm just in a regular residential house. No deed restrictions. If I wanted to cut down a tree in my front yard, does the county, does the state, does the federal government say that I can do that?
The way the current tree law is written, a certified arborist would just need to write a report and deem that tree dangerous, and then you do not have to get a permit. Okay. If you were
So
going to
either
follow,
way, I'm spending money because I have to pay the arborist or I have to pay the city or the county to
exactly,
remove a tree.
exactly. I
But
mean,
does it have, but if I just want to trim the tree back, because like right now, I should show you my oak tree. You're gonna laugh at my oak tree. I want to see if I want to show this to you. I don't know if I want to show this to you or not. Oh, I'm on, let me take it off of blur. We might trim this out, please. Let me go to my settings. Now I kind of wish I hadn't done this. Well, I don't know if you can see it. There's a big tree. You can't see it. It's too white.
your background's still blurred.
There's a huge tree limb that comes right here that comes down and it probably should be cut off. But it's like this big around.
You probably shouldn't cut that off.
I should not. Why is that?
The bigger the cut, the bigger the wound. Trees, normally the pruning standards recommend that if you're going to make a pruning cut, the cut should be about 4 inches or smaller. Okay. So if you're taking out a big limb like this, that's going to open that tree up for decay as time goes on. A
Okay.
smaller cut, that tree actually can seal that wound over, if that makes some sense.
No, yeah,
So,
it does.
like, you wouldn't cut off, if you had to cut off your pinky, you wouldn't start at the wrist.
Right. So you can trim, but right now anybody can go out and just trim something back and it not have to go through anything to have that done.
That's pretty much correct. In most municipalities, there are really no requirements as far as, well, I take that back. I think Dunedin and maybe Clearwater has some restrictions on pruning. And that's part of where that original law is kind of basically saying, yes, you don't need a permit from the municipality to do pruning or removal. And
does this law say anything about like, okay, so let's say you have a homeowners association, you have a homeowner and he has his property line, right?
Mhm.
Is it basically trying to say that if he has a tree within his property line, in his property line, that he can't cut it without the community's
Has nothing to do with community
has
association.
nothing to do with that.
Has nothing to do with
Okay.
it. It's all about municipalities, whether it be a county or the city or town. So, for example, let's just say you live in Shadyville, Florida, fictitious name. You're living in a community association, a deed restricted community, but you have your private property and you have a tree that is on your private property. Assuming that Senate Bill 518 gets passed by DeSantis, he approves it and it becomes law. The process would be that if you wanted to remove the tree, you would have to hire a certified arborist to come out. They would have to write a report, and the report's going to have to contain specific
Reasoning.
and follow these standards. If the homeowner owns this, that tree, he's going to have to obtain that um, piece of that documentation from a certified arborist. Now, if the certified arborist comes out and says, sir, the tree is only a low risk tree, I cannot write a report as an arborist. I can't write a report and say this is a high risk tree when in fact it's a low risk tree. Then that homeowner needs to go ahead and go through the normal permitting process with the municipality. Now, where the HOA comes in, because technically an HOA is a quasi-governmental agency.
Control.
Hmm?
I said control.
The HOA, through their architectural review committee, most HOAs have some restrictions as far as tree removals. And it most of the time is super basic. Like you can't remove a tree without applying to the architectural review committee.
Right.
You're still going to have to go through that process.
So then what is the big deal with CAI then? I don't understand it.
The whole thing, I think, with CAI is they want these common areas within community associations to be deemed residential.
I get that. I can get that. Yeah.
Well, here's
Makes
the
sense.
problem. Yeah, because now all of a sudden that opens it up. How many thousands and thousands upon thousands of acres are we talking about here, as opposed to Mr. Smith's quarter acre lot within that community? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. But
And so, we're not talking about, if CAI were in effect to throw the baby out with the bathwater, the tree law is still going to stand. Okay. Because that's already been passed. All this is revision. And so what would end up happening is it's just going to increase court cases rather than get some better standards out there, help arborists do a better job, and make it easier for homeowners. Because, as a certified arborist, to be, hey, send me a picture of the tree. And if the tree just right off the bat doesn't look like there's a problem, a certified arborist should be saying, hey, this is probably a low risk tree. I can come out and write up a report for you, but it's going to be X amount of dollars. I would suggest you just go ahead with the normal permitting channels within the municipality if you want to get the tree removed. A classic one that I run into a lot, Carrie, is the tree is buckling the driveway, or it will
sidewalk or something. Yeah.
exactly, it'll lift the sidewalk. Well, here's the reality. You could have a 3-inch lift in that sidewalk because the tree roots are growing under that. The risk is not the tree.
It's liability.
The risk is the sidewalk.
No, I agree, but it's still the same thing. I mean, they still have to have somebody, they have to pay to have somebody come out and file that down, the roots down,
Absolutely.
and redo the concrete. And some insurance companies are going to require that at renewal. If they send out an inspector, not every insurance company is going to inspect, but everyone, they handpick, okay, we're going to go to this one now. And they walk out there and they have potholes, or they have crumbling up sidewalks because of tree roots, or just because they're old, whatever the reason is. If they deem that as a trip and fall, they could say, we're not going to renew your liability insurance policy until that is fixed. If you cannot get it fixed in time for the renewal, we'll give you this amount of days, but we need something in writing stating that you've started the process of fixing it.
Exactly. And you see, that's actually one of the services that we provide here at Platinum Tree Management. We go out and kind of evaluate these situations and then make some recommendations. Sometimes it could be simple things like maybe a root barrier should be installed, or maybe there's a way of rerouting that sidewalk, or do you even need a sidewalk there?
Right.
I mean, there's situations where you got sidewalk and really nobody's even using it.
Yeah, it's a hazard that is an unneeded hazard. Yeah,
Exactly. And
unnecessary.
then and sometimes it does boil down to, okay, if you have an option, you could remove the tree, but then all of a sudden you're removing a 30-year-old tree. Now, I had a community here in Tampa, and before I got involved with them, you know, the board had come in and removed 70% of the oak trees between the road and the sidewalk
Because of the sidewalk buckling.
because of the sidewalk issues. And it's like, okay, I understand that, but first of all, they didn't even apply for a permit; they just did it, and so now Tampa's after them. And beyond that, it's like, okay, now you have nothing in your community, and the sun is just beating down on these front yards, and then people are complaining because, you know, it's kind of funny because what ended up happening is because there was oak trees, and oak trees have acorns. They drop the acorn kind of sit in the lawn. So now all of a sudden, it's opened up for all this sunlight, and
And
then
their grass is dead.
people are complaining because all these little baby oaks are trying to come up because it's released all these things.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
actually kind of comical in a way, because they're having all these kind of trickle down
Issues.
effects.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, yes, there's a time where a tree does need to be removed. We can all agree on that. But does it have to be every tree in a community? Absolutely not. And if the community associations gather together and revise this to where the HOAs become considered residential property, okay, it has nothing to do with Mr. Smith and his individual property, because that's still going to qualify.
You're
But
talking
we're
common
talking about
area.
the common areas. Now we're talking thousands and thousands of acres of potential trees that could conceivably be removed indiscriminately.
I'm supposed to have Josh from CEOMC on soon. We're going to have a discussion, and I think I might bring this law up to him. Somebody in CAI is fighting for this, or else there wouldn't have been a big post about it. So it'd be interesting to find out where exactly it's coming from.
Well, it would have been nice too if CAI had actually reached out to the organizations that had sponsored this and gotten involved, because it's been a real challenge, um, getting some support behind this whole thing. And the sticking point was not so much residential property. The sticking point was, we need to be following these standards, okay, and not just, you could just write a report on a napkin and it's okay.
yeah.
And I really kind of question that whole thinking, because last time I checked, when I looked up pretty much any community on Sunbiz, that community is incorporated.
It's a
It
not-for-profit, but
it's
it
a
is
not for
incorporated.
profit, and most community associations are not like a full blown 501(c)(3).
No, none of them. Hardly. I don't think any of them are.
Hardly any of them are. And
You have to
did
be
you
like a
know?
charity. I mean, I could go out and start a not-for-profit or a nonprofit, like for example, BMI, CAI. They're nonprofit organizations, but they're not 501(c)(3)s. Not all of them. So,
But you see, if community associations actually did a little investigation, maybe changed it a little bit, they would actually qualify for some federal grants through the Florida Forest Service.
I would
Florida,
like to. Okay, so
Florida
what?
Forest Service, I'm on a committee, um, on the Florida Urban Forestry Council, and I've talked to the person that writes grants for the Florida Forest Service, or actually he administers them. He would love to give HOAs money for trees and tree care. He can't because they don't fit within the government guidelines.
And see, here's the thing. You're just talking about the state of Florida, though. This is a national thing that they're talking about. So for what, I don't know, maybe it's a mess in other states.
I'm sure it's a mess everywhere.
So I don't know. I don't even know if I don't even know if I still understand the whole like why they made such a big deal of it. But I'm
Well,
glad
they,
we
they,
got
they,
together so that you could clarify it a little bit, so that we could let
yeah,
people know. Don't write him and tell him to veto it. There is a reason for it. Let the people that know what they're talking about do what they need to do.
that's what I would ask everybody to do is, if CAI and other people are concerned about the residential aspect of the bill, I feel like the appropriate response at this point is to go ahead and get the governor to go ahead and approve the bill. And then next session, lobby to change just the part of the bill that's reflective on residential property. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Mm-hmm.
We need better standards and better guidance from the state. And that's what we've worked for almost 2 years, trying to really make things better for community associations and homeowners in general.
Yeah, it seems like there's just a huge communication gap and they just need to fill that gap. And maybe, John, you could be the start of that. You could take action. All these
Well,
committees you're on there. I know, I know it's a lot. It's a lot to do, but well,
it's
thanks for your time today.
thanks so much, Carrie.
I appreciate you coming on.